It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how are you feeling?
I'm good, man. I've been in a really good mood all day. I got to kind of just chill Sunday, which was nice.
Okay. All right. I was going to ask what the reason was that was the case, but I guess that's I'm not. Let me just say that.
I recharged the batteries a little bit. Like it was direly necessary.
I'll try to pretend that I'm in a good mood for this podcast, but
me and my cell phone were basically like in the red all week in Indianapolis. It's one of those where you're just going hard the whole time. So yeah, good rest day. Back at it, man. Fired up.
Alan, everything else in my living room is done at my new house. Right. And so we were like, you know what, let's mount the TV. We mount the TV. Takes us like hour and a half to put this mount. This is not like a typical mount. For whatever reason, my dad was like, why'd you have to get the most complicated mount? Like he's mounted other TVs in our house within a matter of like 15 minutes. Finally get this thing up, turn it on, and there's a crack in the bottom left corner. Every step of the way with this house, man, there's just been something.
Welcome to the joys of home ownership, Smitty. Welcome.
I'm getting a crash course just every step of the way in terms of what this is going to be like. But anyways, so that's what I was very frustrated yesterday. And still kind of today, but we're here. So yes, I'm undergoing some interesting changes. And Alan, according to Josina Anderson, we're going to have some interesting changes taking place with the Steelers. This was put out now like 48 hours ago, I think, maybe 72. Actually, I think it was Friday night, maybe. So like even longer than that. A few days now have gone past without anything happening in terms of what this could mean. No clarification, no follow-up from Josina Anderson. When you see something like this, are you like asking around trying to figure out if there is something going on that you're missing? Has anything come your way? What do we think this could have possibly been about?
I don't want to say that I've never been caught flat-footed by a Steelers story that was significant. Like Minkah Fitzpatrick trade was definitely not something I was expecting. Trading up for Devin Bush was definitely not something I was expecting. So it does happen from time to time. But I think like the scoreboard of like people saying something big is going to happen versus and it not happening versus something big happening and me not expecting it is like 15,000 to 3. Like I got kind of I saw that and I go, that'll get them going. And then I put my phone down. Like that's about all my only reaction to it.
Yeah, I mean, so to the other part of the, so obviously nothing had come your way, but like when you see something like that, do you yourself try to like take it, like do you start asking around trying to see if there is something that you're missing or no? Like you were just like, if something's going on, it'll obviously come my way.
Yeah, no, I mean, not specifically. I mean, no. Here's the thing is like, sometimes you just don't have the right source and you're not going to get a story. But like, if I had the right source, and something big was happening, I probably would have heard about it. So like, there's not anything I can really do about it at this point if I don't. You know what I mean? Like, if the people I'm talking to aren't saying anything, then I'm not going to learn anything. And sometimes that happens, but yeah, I mean,
yeah. Well, so my mind went to like, okay, let's pretend that there was something happening here. Like that time in the, like just where we're at in the calendar at the combine, I was like, what exactly could we be talking about here? They obviously can't be signing anybody. It would be a weird time in terms of like making coaching changes, like unless they were filling a position, like adding to. So I was like, and I don't know that I would consider that something like major enough for the wording of that post. So I was like, what could this even potentially be about? Like, I don't know if this time on the calendar what we'd be talking about there, unless like there was some decision that came out where it was like, yeah, they're parting ways with both quarterbacks or something like that. We knew that was going to be the case, which obviously that's not the case.
Yellow helmets.
Hey, yeah, there you go.
Yellow
maybe that's what it was a reference to.
They're retiring Steely McBeam.
Oh wow.
I don't, it's just.
I said they were getting rid of Pepsi and replacing it with Coke at Acrisure Stadium.
Maybe they should go the PPG Paints Arena route and go RC Cole.
No.
I do like that. I do. I don't know. I'm not going to try to like get into Josina Anderson's head about what she might be thinking. Also, like in general, and this isn't specifically a shot at Josina. I'm just saying in general, the national media know less about what's going on with your team than you do. They may hear things from people that you don't have access to, but like as far as like the context of what would consider a significant change, I would trust the average Steelers fan to be able to answer that question for me more than I would trust the average national media member. They don't know what's significant and what's not. Like they or what's going to be significant to the conversation around this team. Maybe like right now, somebody out there's like, oh, they're going to get rid of Russell Wilson and go with Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. That might be a significant change to somebody. I don't think the Steelers fans, that's really going to move the needle at this point.
And I don't know. I don't think this person's on a national level. Somebody, I don't want to put their name out there. They actually used to be with ESPN. I think they're still on the beat for this team, but they're no longer with ESPN. Somebody followed me on Twitter today and DM me because I literally copied and pasted Josina's tweet like as a joke. And they DM me to be like, hey, what are you hearing? So, yeah, just to put it into perspective, my joke of a tweet actually was getting some traction today. I don't think people either didn't see Josina's post or were like too much time had gone by to put it together if that's what that was, but I don't know. Either way, I thought that was funny. Alan, one of the shoes that we've kind of been talking about for actually quite a bit has dropped in the Deebo Samuel stuff. Deebo Samuel being traded to Washington, one of the destinations that we had talked about. Obviously, Adam Peters there came from San Francisco to become the Washington Commanders GM. Goes for a 5th-round pick. They're taking on the salary there. What do we make of that move? Is that something for that price the Steelers should have been interested in? You're muted right now, by the way.
I don't think the Steelers were that interested in not just the 5th-round pick, because I don't think they care about that, but no money being taken on by San Francisco. On top of that, $17.55 million for Deebo for this year feels steep. And also the timing of it, I think, is just wrong for the Steelers. I think they want to have their quarterback in place first before they make a move at wide receiver. And so like I don't think they were in love with that price tag. You know, it was first reported, it was like, we talked about this. It was like very strange. It was like, they might cut him. There might not be a market. There's 5 teams interested in 2 aggressors. And I'm like, oh, they're getting a 5th-round pick. Like, I don't know. I don't know how the reporting that was very strange, but I felt like the Steelers were in for a little bit, not for a lot. And that was probably about the most I could have imagined Deebo Samuel being traded for. And I just think the combination of the relatively high price tag and them not having a quarterback in place yet made that a loser for them. I'm very curious to see if this means that the 49ers will or will not continue to engage on Brandon Aiyuk. Because that's the funniest thing that could happen this offseason. And I'm always rooting for that.
I wonder, so whether or not that they'll engage in those talks based off this yet to be seen, do you think that they have to get a wide receiver back in that for them to consider it or no?
I don't know.
Because somebody threw my way, if the Steelers aren't thrilled with George Pickens, could he be a part of that move?
Yeah, sure.
If they felt better about extending him. Although, I don't know. San Fran, now, if they're having buyer's remorse on Brandon Aiyuk already and didn't like that process, now they're going to have to try to extend another wide receiver like one summer later? I don't know.
Yeah, I just... The trade for George Pickens involving another wide receiver is hard to come up with. DK Metcalf, I think, could work. But it's like there's not very many of those. If that's what you're looking to do, I think it's kind of difficult. Because like you said, like if a team is like trading their good wide receiver because they're fed up with him, they're not going to want George Pickens. Like that, the Steelers are fed up with him too. Like that's, that's not going to work. So I don't know. I think a draft pick trade is much more reasonable. You get to a point in this draft where in the second day things get thin, Harris is off the board. Higgins is off the board. Minor is off the board. Somebody's staring at like using pick 65 on, I don't know, Jalen Royals. And they're like, wouldn't George Pickens be better for this? And you know, like, that's, I think, where if they're looking to trade him, and I haven't reported this yet, but one of the things I heard in the combine is that I don't get the sense that they're especially motivated right now to try to trade George Pickens. I don't think they're happy with the situation. I think they're just being realistic about what's going to get them a good wide receiver room in 2024. And I don't think they think that's particularly feasible.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Like, I asked, and I think I brought it up on here with you, but certainly when Aaron was on here, I mentioned, like, does this wide receiver class and the free agent wide receiver class make it more or less feasible or attractive to trade George Pickens? Because on one hand, you think like the value that you could get because of that would be higher, but at the same time, because of that, it's going to be hard to replace that player, because what is the solution, free agency or in the draft, for George Pickens? And another thing, like, when you look at what the Steelers need, when you look at, like, they need a running back, defensive tackle, it obviously is appealing to them the way that this draft class looks. Well, when they need a receiver too, and whether you're looking at free agency or the draft, that's a need that, like, it looks pretty thin in terms of being able to check that box.
Yeah, it's really hard. Like, it's a really thin needle, tough needle to thread. Like, to trade away the best player you have at your weakest position while attempting to upgrade the position in an overall market at that position that is relatively poor. Like, that's just a really, really difficult assignment. Like, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's pretty tough to envision. And so, like, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, though, if that means that George Pickens is going to hold out, because I know that's not going to make him happy either. So I don't know.
See that? I thought that that's where you were going to go, because that was something that was kind of thrown my way from somebody in terms of some scuttlebutt that they were hearing at the combine, is that George is going to make it ugly if he doesn't get money this summer.
See, I haven't heard that, and I don't know, but like, it makes sense. I mean, like, we've seen lots of other players go down that path, and it's certainly his right to do so. I don't begrudge players from trying to get paid.
No, yeah, right.
I think of, like, George Pickens' actions have not been professional over the course of his career. Holding out to get a new contract, I don't consider to be unprofessional. That's just that's just a part of the business.
But people probably, kind of lump it all in together with his actions and throw that in there. But I'm on board with you. I don't think that that's something that we can categorize in the same way in terms of the mishaps that George has had through his career here. I want to ask you about one more receiver and then come back to tie all three of them together in a way. And that's Davante Adams, who his time with the Jets, short time with the Jets, running up, whether he's traded or will be released. We knew when he was traded last year from the Raiders to the Jets, he was not going to play on that price tag that he would in 2025. Something was going to have to happen with his contract to make it work going forward if he were to stay there, but that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. I don't think anybody's going to trade for him and take on that, so I assume he'll be released and then get to pick where he wants to go. I think the probably safe assumption, he might wait it out and see where Aaron Rodgers ends up and try to go there again with him. But should he still be on the Steelers' radar just like he was last season?
I love the reporting. It's like the Jets are willing to trade Davante Adams. It's like, yeah, man, no crap. Like, the Jets would love for someone to take the $36 million cap hit of Davante Adams off them. Yeah. It's not guaranteed. So that's the thing, is like, I do actually think trade is possible, because him and a new team can just tear the contract up and say, yeah, okay. But like, if you're that team, what's the scenario that you feel like you have to trade something for him to keep him from getting to the market? I don't know. It seems pretty unlikely.
I would say maybe if you were like Washington and you didn't go and get Deebo, and you were like, Aaron's going to go to New York and we don't want Davante in the division, we could also use a receiver. Maybe something like that. Like, that's obviously very specific scenario.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like the Raiders sign Aaron Rodgers and the Chargers are like, not only do we need a receiver, we keep him from the Raiders. Okay. But like, if you trade for him, then like, now you're kind of negotiating under the gun. Like, you better have a pretty good idea of what deal is going to get this done. Because then if you can't make a deal work, you just wasted whatever you traded for him. So like, I guess I could see somebody trading like a late round pick just basically to get his rights and then go negotiate a deal and say, look, if we can't negotiate a deal with him, we're willing to give that up and then we'll just cut him. I guess that's possible.
I have a question for you regarding all three of the receivers we just talked about. And then there's a question that I want to bring in from YouTube as well. But the thing that I wanted to ask you about, we've heard about, not only in terms of paying a quarterback before you really go out and get a receiver, not just for knowing what you're committing financially to that position and stuff like that, but also like the specific type of receiver. So how would you if you were looking at these guys, whether with Deebo Samuel, I guess doesn't really matter anymore because obviously he's got a new home, but Brandon Aiyuk, Davante Adams that we just talked about, do those guys fall into a bucket where they are more specific for one quarterback for you that would make more sense than the other, or what?
I think if you're going to have Justin Fields as quarterback, I think just in general, the importance of who is at wide receiver becomes a little bit minimized. You're going to run more. You're going to have more of a quarterback run. You're going to do more stuff that's out of structure. So it's sort of less about like traditional down the field separation, especially like deep ball, combat catch, contested catch ability. Like that's not really his thing. Also like quick game, neither of them are good at. So like, which is why I don't understand Cooper Kupp, because like that's like what he's good at. And so, yeah, I mean, I think someone with some experience as a player that can work out a structure probably makes more sense for Justin. A better blocker probably makes more sense with Justin because you're going to do more like run on the edges, zone read kind of thing. And then like when we talked about Mike Williams being a good fit for the Steelers, I thought it was because you would go double X and you would give Russ that sort of deep ball option to either side. Now, for whatever reason, that didn't end up happening, but I think that would be less of a priority for me with Fields than it would be with Wilson.
Okay. And just in general, a question from YouTube that came here from Jason H5131. Alan Smitty, why do you think the Steelers are falling behind on the trade market for wide receivers? Is the answer as simple as what you just said, where they don't have a quarterback under contract right now, so that's something where like maybe they're kicking the tires but not getting super aggressive?
I don't really get the sense that the Steelers are behind the trade market for wide receivers. I think if the Steelers really wanted Deebo Samuel at the price he was traded for, they would have found a way to make it work despite not having a quarterback. And no one else has been traded. So I don't think
maybe this is going back to last year though, too. Like we talked about obviously.
Look, last year they misread the wide receiver market when they traded Deontay Johnson, and that put them behind. And they were trying to catch up all offseason, right? They thought they were going to be able to replace Deontay Johnson for a lot less than it turned out they were able to replace Deontay Johnson for. And then they started to scramble, and then they ran out of options, and then they put all their eggs in the Brandon Aiyuk basket, and that didn't work. And like, so like they misread where the market was going, I think. And I think they've learned that lesson. I don't think they're doing that again. They might be doing it at running back. I don't think they're doing it at wide receiver right now.
What makes you say that about the running back position?
The Dulac report that like they would sign Najee Harris for 6 point something million a season, and I'm just like, that's a laughable deal for me. I might get double that.
Yeah, that was something else that came out of the combine. Is like Najee's team, I think, feels very good about him getting 10+ million. There's at least one place that's going to give him that, willing to give him that.
And I think, like, I heard talk that like the Vikings are trying to re-sign Aaron Jones before free agency.
Oh wow!
If that happens, like, look out, because like he's the only guy then.
Yeah, who's he? Who's he competing with in terms of
Nick Chubb?
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins, who we talked about on here, obviously, but might do better for him as well. All right, well, good stuff there. I want to ask you about a couple corners now. DJ Reed going to hit the market for the Jets. His name has been brought up several times on here. He's within a group of a very talented free agent corner class, which the Steelers, I fully expect actually to sign one of these guys. And now another name being added to it, 34-year-old Darius Slay, who coming off of a Super Bowl win with the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously time with the Detroit Lions before that. Now, I'm curious as to like how much conversation you think we should even have about this. Like, is it feasible for him to go somewhere else? I know he was on a podcast with the St. Brown brothers, and it kind of sounds like it's like Detroit, or maybe he would even just sign a different deal in Philly to be able to stay there. But if he were willing to entertain offers from other places, should the Steelers be in the mix despite his age?
I gotta be honest, man. I did not realize Darius Slay was 34 years old. Like, I mean, I
he
knew
still
he
played very well last year.
I knew he was in Detroit before, but like, you go watch the man play this year, it does not look like a 34-year-old corner. He tackles, he gets his, like, usually old corners are just like, yeah, I'm gonna do my thing over here and cover, and like when the running back comes this way, I'm just gonna, like we saw a little bit of that from Patrick Peterson, right? In his year in Pittsburgh, where I was like, yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm old. I hurt all the time. I totally. I'm not throwing stones. I'm just saying that's something you see. Darius Slay sticks his nose in there, man. He's a good tackler. He's still really fast. Like I think he's still a good player. So the case to be made for Darius Slay is this to me. They really like Corey Trice. They think they're going to draft a corner, and they think that one of those two guys starting in 2026 will be willing to take over. Like, so if you're going to draft a corner in like the third round.
Yeah, they're building the Porterhouse.
Between him and Corey Trice, 26, they'll be able to take over, and you only need a 1-year guy. And in that instance, you're looking at guys like Stephon Gilmore, Jonathan Jones. There's a couple other veteran guys out there that I'm not thinking of right now, but those are the two that come to my mind. But I know there's more. But like, I would rather have Slay than either of those guys right now. I think he's a better player right now, even though he's older, and he's a better fit for the Steelers scheme. So, like, on a 1-year deal, yeah, absolutely. Now, do the Steelers not want to draft a corner? Would they rather lock this position up for multiple years? If that's the case, then Slay's not an option, right? Then you're going to Paulson Adebo or DJ Reed or Travarius Ward or Asante Samuel or this is a guy in Detroit, blanking.
Carlton Davis.
Right, one of those guys. Like, then you're going that way instead. So I don't know. It could go, but like I think either of those are perfectly fine approaches. I just think it's preference.
Yeah, but I think it speaks to how good this free agent corner class is, where it's like, for me, I would be looking to sign a guy multi-years. So like for me, Slay's probably like 6th or 7th in terms of the pecking order for me. And that to me just speaks more to the class than it is the quality of player that Darius Slay still is, despite being 34 years old.
It's such a good class, man. Like there's just so many good corners out there.
Yeah. And I don't know if everybody got the Porterhouse thing that refers to your mock draft that you put out, which by the way, not that you need my endorsement, but big fan of the boxes that were checked top to bottom in that draft.
Yeah, I was done with it, and I was like, man, that's this would get an A in my book.
Yeah. I was looking at the comments. I think most people were on board with it. I saw some disagreement, but you're gonna have that. You're not gonna be able to please everybody.
I think some people are very, very into wide receiver in round 1.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that there's certainly a drop off too, but I think that, you use the term thread the needle. You were able to thread the needle and still get a wide receiver talent, in my opinion, worthy of being second round selection that is going to contribute to you got like one of the 3 guys that I would be okay with him taking in round 2, where I think it makes it more palatable.
Trey Harris was there too. So like I had 2 options really.
Ooh,
I would take Higgins in the second round too, even though like he's being mocked in the third. I would be okay with taking Higgins in the second round.
Same. We also had somebody in the comments that enjoys, I don't know if they enjoy or hate it. I really couldn't tell based off the comment. But when I say something is palatable, so I'm going to try to work that in at least once every episode.
All right. You got any other words you need us to work in? Let us know.
I want to turn my attention real quick before we get to one more YouTube thing here to the quarterback position. Obviously, we haven't talked about it enough, Alan, but another name that we haven't mentioned, the Steelers may be waiting out to see if he will become available, is Derek Carr of the New Orleans Saints, still their starting quarterback. Mickey Loomis had said that they expect him to be their starting quarterback, but I don't think he's just going to come right out and say forecast what their future is going to be there at that position. One, do you expect him to just remain in New Orleans? And if he should become available, is that somebody intrigues you at all in terms of Steelers option in 2025?
Well, like, I don't know what to expect because on one hand, I guess we'll believe what Mickey says. On the other hand, the Saints are $47.5 million over the salary cap.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty easy fix to.
Mickey said, I expect Derek Carr to be my quarterback. He did not say, oh, and by the way, here's how I'm going to fix this salary cap disaster and do that at the same time. So until I see a path to them getting under the cap, I think everything's on the table.
And it's not like he's played, so much, so well that it's not worth. To me, that's a pretty easy call.
You cut Derek Carr and you sign Sam Darnold, I think you get better at quarterback.
Yeah, I thought you were just gonna throw like some bottom of the barrel quarterback play out there, and I don't know, maybe I know that Spencer Rattler got an addition.
The post June 1 cut saves them $30 million on Carr.
Jeez.
So you could cut Carr, sign Darnold, and probably still have $10 million left over.
Yeah.
Now they need another $37 million in cap savings. So I don't know. They're in trouble.
The Saints, man. It's like every year. Imagine if the cap hasn't gone up, if it didn't go up the way that it has the past couple of years, what they'd be having to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to think about where they operate in. Just operating in the red until they can't. So we'll see what the future is of Derek Carr. One more thing I want to get to from YouTube here. Devin the House, Mr. Saunders. You got a Mr. Saunders here, Alan. And Steelers Now team, thank you for how hard you guys grind in the offseason, provide us good Steelers news and content. With all this talk about formal meetings, could you let us know if the Steelers actually met with people that they have drafted in previous years? Or is it more as a pump fake to throw off other teams? Don't remember hearing that they met with Fatanu and others at the Combine last year, anything like that. Thanks.
Oh yeah, they definitely. In fact, the Steelers are probably the most transparent team in the league in terms of trying to figure out what they are doing based on who they pay attention to. So last year, I don't know that it was reported that they had a formal with Fatanu, but he was one of the guys that never talked because of injury.
Right.
So it just wasn't reported, but they did do a top 30 visit with him where they brought him into the facility, and they, I want to say they were at his pro day too, weren't they?
Yeah. They would have been. Yeah. In Washington, because, what's his name? His son plays there too. Yeah.
So I'm looking at my big board here from last year where I have all the so yeah, we had Fatanu as they met with him at the Combine. They had an assistant coach at his pro day, and he came to Pittsburgh for a top 30 visit. So if you go look at my big board from last year, it has all those little logos on it where who what you can see pretty easily where the guys are that they liked, and most of the players they take fall into those buckets in one way or another. Let's look at linebacker. Peyton Wilson, Senior Bowl 30 visit. Let's look at guard. Mason McCormick, Shrine Bowl Combine. Roman Wilson.
When's the last player they took where there was no, I know Juju gets talked about, that was a surprise in 2017, but I can't think of really one since then.
Roman Wilson, Senior Bowl, Tomlin at his pro day, and an assistant coach at his pro day.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones, Logan Lee, I don't know if I had him on my board. He was pretty far down. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, okay, so last year's draft class, the Steelers did nothing with Kieran Amedeji, the tackle from Yale. Okay. Nothing. The zero reported interest. If I get to the fourth round, I'm well, that ain't gonna happen. Now Roger Rosengarten, it's on the Senior Bowl, had an assistant coach at his pro day. Blake Fisher from Notre Dame, met with him at the Combine, brought him for a 30 visit. Mac and Salvas from Pitt, Shrine Bowl, 30 visit. So you're sitting there on day 3, you're like, well, these are possible. This one probably isn't. Like, yeah, absolutely. Now, do they meet with some guys that they know they're not really going to get a chance at? Yeah, but it's more about using those visits to set up future ideas. They met with Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan, although he was mocked to them today by somebody. I don't remember who.
Would you do that, by the way? A name that we really haven't talked about just because of
absolutely. I mean, I guess not if they'd already like signed Trevarius Ward and Nate Hobbs, and like where would you play them? But like other than that, yeah, sure. When they're meeting with those guys that you're like not like Genty, he's not going to get there. They're meeting with those guys for 2 reasons. One, they're trying to predict what other teams are going to think about those players, right? So they're meeting with Atch and Genty like Jerry Jones is going to freaking love this dude. He's never getting past 12. Okay. They're meeting with Will Johnson thinking, man, like Sean Payton, I don't think you'll like this guy. Like he's definitely a fall. If he gets to the Broncos, he's falling to us, right? Like, so that's part of it. And the other part of it is they want to build relationships with these guys that they can't get in the draft. So that when they get to free agency in 4 years, they sign Patrick Queen. They say, they've done this over and over again where these guys they really liked in the draft who are out of their range, they circle back to them in free agency and they want to, build the groundwork for those relationships.
Yeah, that's what, like, the other part of that, and I've seen other people say this too, with like trying to pump fake other teams into thinking what they're doing, like playing games and stuff.
They don't really engage in a lot of that. They'll try to obscure what they're doing to some level. They don't do a lot of like, hey, we're over here. Like
maybe like for ones that you have like a limited number of, like that certainly wouldn't have. I guess if you have like an unlimited amount or whatever, then I still could say like a waste of time potentially. But if you have like a limited number that you can conduct, I don't think there's anybody that's just going to use it to pump fake somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, you might go to a pro day just to pump fake somebody, I guess. Like you might like I think they've done this before a little bit where like Kevin Colbert went to like, I can't remember where it was. It was Duke or Carolina. Mm-hmm. But like all 3 of the Raleigh schools had their pro days like in a row. And he went and did all 3 of them. And I really think they really only liked the NC State guy. But he went to all 3 just kind of to be like, well, you don't know why I went down there. You know what I mean? Like that one I could see a little bit, but like they don't do a ton of that.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Alan, before we get out of here, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH, Steelers Now. Site account, SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the word so I can get paid. If you're appreciative of all this content from the Combine and the Senior Bowl and the Super Bowl and the Pro Bowl, and when I go to the pro days and when I go to the owners meetings and all the rest of the stuff I've been doing all off season, sign up for SN Plus. It really helps us out. And you get to read all my stuff with none of the annoying ads. And I know they're annoying, so get rid of them. It's $4 a month, cheap. And like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube platform. That's free, helps us out, and you don't miss an episode. Steelers Morning Rush, Steelers Afternoon Drive, all the rest of the stuff we got here on the YouTube platform. And we have we are now at 15,100, and man, this is a tough one.
Yeah, I know. Like obviously Peyton Wilson right now, Robert Spillane. Oh,
I'm going old school. I'm going Lee Flowers, baby.
I'm not going old school, but I'm going fan favorite, and I say that half sarcastically. Valentino Blake.
There you go. I'll go way old school since Lee Flowers is pretty old, but 41, I'm pretty sure, was worn by ESPN reporter Solomon Wilcots in his one season with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Well, appreciate you pulling that one out of the bag. Anyways, drop a comment down below. Let us know how you feel about anything that we talked about in this episode, a question or a thought that you have and what discussed on a future episode. We're going to need those, obviously, as we continue to work through the off season here. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you're listening somewhere else, be sure to leave a 5-star review. Subscribe over there, Apple Podcasts,
Spotify.
Reading
those reviews over there.
Yeah, wherever you get your podcast from, leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there, and we're going to read them on the podcast. I'll be sure to do that if we got any new ones coming our way. So be sure to do that. Search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok. Find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.